Welcome to the Money and Flow podcast, where avocado toast and stocks meet. Did you know that women and women of color don't talk that much about money? And did you also know that the health and wellness community is a $600 billion business? And did you also know that women aren't in the forefront when it comes to decision making with our health and wealth? We're here to change that. This is the first podcast that focuses on wellness and money. This podcast is targeted for women and women of color, specifically in their 20s and 30s. And without further ado, your host, Eugenie George.
Super excited to have you on the podcast. Today we're going to talk about eating healthy, your money story, your health story. I am super excited. So before we dive into that, could you tell us a little bit about your health story? Because I do think it is very transformative.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Tangia, known online mostly as Tangia Renee or Hello Gorgeous Fitness. And I came into the wellness space initially as your traditional personal trainer after I had this whole health transformation that happened to me. But not that happened to me, that I took action on and made happen. But it kind of took over my life for a time. So I was living my life the way I thought I was supposed to, right? Like I was checking all of the boxes. I went to college, I got married, I got a good job, I got a better job, I went to graduate school, started a thing, started another thing. Like I was just doing what I thought I was supposed to do. All the while, I was gaining weight. Like I gained the freshman 15 and then I just like had that extra 15 pounds. And then I got into graduate school and was working full time and doing an internship, and all self-care completely went out of the window. In fact, I didn't really know what self-care was. That wasn't really a term at that point in my life that I was familiar with, and it wasn't a trendy thing yet. It was just like anything that I would have done normally to decompress and relax just stopped because there was no time. Right. And then so through graduate school, I really gained a lot more weight. And then so I found myself out of graduate school, working really hard on my career, building organizations, co-founding a nonprofit, starting a for-profit business. And the weight was there. And I was just in this constant yo-yo that happens to a lot of women, just the gain 30 pounds and then starve myself until I lost 30 pounds and then gain 30 pounds and yada, 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 yada. Mm-hmm. And about this time as I started, so I was building these businesses, but I was also working in campaigns. So my previous career, I was in public policy. My degree was in political science. And so I was actually working in politics.
We're actually very similar. That's crazy. I also studied public policy and political science.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get it.
And it's a high stress career.
Yeah.
And that's not something that you're necessarily prepared for. I mean, they don't really talk about it in school. Like this is the kind of job that if you're going to be in campaigns and you're going to be working 70 or 80-hour weeks, nobody tells you that. And how not to burn out. And I just burned out. Like I reached this point where the whispers in my body had started. So like your body will signal to you when you need a break. It will signal to you what's going on. It will try to communicate with you. And I just was ignoring it. And, it started as a whisper. Like it started with headaches, and the little persistent headaches turned into migraines. And then the migraines turned into chronic migraines. And then it was, getting sick more often. It's typical for me to catch a cold once a year, nothing too severe, like just, a little cold, and 2 or 3 days it's gone. But at this point in my life, it was like I would catch a cold and then the cold would turn into an infection, and then the infection would stick around for 3 or 4 weeks, and I would be on a round of antibiotics, and then it would clear up, and then 6 weeks later I would have it again. So I was getting like chronic respiratory infections. There was like a 3-year period where I got strep throat every single year as an adult. As a child, as an adult, I was getting ear infections. Like I would get strep throat, get better from that, and then I would get an ear infection. And it was just getting worse, and it was getting worse, and it was getting worse. I started breaking out in hives. And then I looked down one day and I realized that I wasn't just overweight. I wasn't just a little bit chubby anymore. I was obese. And at my heaviest, I was about 240 pounds. For a 5'7" woman, that's excessive weight. It was way too much. And it felt like it really snuck up on me. And even though I was a very active kid and an athlete, I didn't know how to get out of this situation that I had created. And just my health at that point was telling me that I needed to focus there. I needed to like stop working so much, and I needed to get my health together. Not just because of how it was affecting me physically, but emotionally and mentally. I was so like, my self-confidence was done. It was gone. You know, I went from being an athlete, a highly active person, to being the woman that avoided looking in mirrors because of my weight. I hated buying new clothes. You know, it was like, and I just went through this horrible place with my body where I turned on myself, where I just hated my body and I blamed my body for everything that was wrong. And I got into that diet culture mentality that a lot of women are in, where it's like, if you can just lose the weight, then you'll finally be happy. And I did all the diets. I mean, I like to joke that if a diet had a commercial, I did it.
Yeah,
because I did. I've done them all. If it has a commercial, I did it, except for like the brand new stuff that's out that didn't have a commercial 5 or 6 years ago.
right.
I didn't do that, but I did them all, and they all failed. And so I believe that I was a failure. I believe that my body was a failure. And at a certain point, I just gave up. And I was like, well, this is my life. It's probably normal for people that hate their bodies. That shouldn't be normal, but it was.
Yeah.
And then, so enter my brothers. So all of this time, my younger brothers had been competitive bodybuilders. And I always was really interested in bodybuilding as a sport, and just I wasn't gutsy enough to give it a try, especially after I had gained all the weight and I was just, you know, my confidence was in the toilet. And I'd finally reached that point where I knew that I needed to do something, because just like physically my body was breaking down.
Yeah.
And my brothers were competing, and I was always at their competition supporting. But because my confidence was so bad, I always sat in the back row and just kind of tried to hide. Because everybody there was fit and looked great. Right?
Yeah, that's crazy. It reminds me of my boyfriend's uncle. He's like in his like late 60s. He's a bodybuilder. And I'm just like, how do you do it? You know, you're like, this man is going to gym. Well, he's retired too, I think. But it's like, this man's going to gym like twice a day. Like, I could 100% understand how it could be very overwhelming going there.
I mean, I literally just tried to hide. Like, I would wear clothes that I felt hid me, so I didn't want to draw any attention to myself. And I would sit in the very back, and I wouldn't make any noise, which is not my personality. I'm actually pretty loud. But the last time my brother competed, it was the same situation. Went to the competition, sat in the back row, and tried to hide. And I was just kind of sitting there, just being very envious of the women athletes, and just being like, God, I just want to feel like that. Like, could I ever do that? And then one of my other brothers wasn't competing in that competition, and he was sitting next to me, and he just kind of nudged me and was like, you know that you could do this, right? Like, if you really wanted to, you're tougher than all of these girls. You're tougher than all of them. And I didn't say anything. I just kind of let that sit there. And my husband was sitting on the other side of me. He was like, you could, like, if you really wanted to, you would rocket this. But I didn't respond. I just let that sit there. Well, then that next weekend, we all went and had a big family barbecue to like celebrate the end of the competition season. Because when you compete like that, you've been restricting for a long time. And so like, it's your chance to kind of let loose and eat some cake or whatever. And so we do this barbecue, and, you know, like all my brother's bodybuilding friends come with all of their really fit girlfriends. And I'm just kind of like, ah, shit. And I'm sitting there, right? But I had realized that day at that competition, while I was again sitting in the back row, that I had reached a crossroads. I had finally reached a point that I was tired of being tired. I was sick of myself. Mm-hmm. I was sick of like buying whatever the next big diet phenomenon is and then doing that for whatever that plan was. They're usually like 21, 30, 60, or 90 days. And doing that plan, and at the end of it feeling stupid and like a loser. I was at the end of my rope, and I was like, I knew that I needed to do something different, and I was ready to take action on that. I just didn't know what it was. So at that barbecue, you know, several of the folks there were coaches and trainers, and my brother was like, listen, my friend is really good at this. Mm-hmm. He'll coach you. All you got to do is say yes. So I just kind of looked at him and I was like, okay, yes, let's get started. Mm-hmm. So I met with my coach that following week, just a few days later. And he was like, so what do you want to do? What's your goal? And I was like, 6 months from now, I want to lose all of this weight and I'm going to compete. 6 months, I want to be on stage. And He kind of was like, okay. And as a coach now, I understand his hesitation. He knew what my life was going to look like in order to make that happen. It wasn't that he didn't believe I couldn't do it. It was that he knew how difficult it was going to be. Right. How disciplined. I was going to have to go from somebody that had no discipline around food and no discipline around activity and exercise, and really just like generally not a lot of discipline in the way that I approach things, to someone that was going to have to be 100% disciplined 100% of the time. And that is a major shift to make. But I was determined that I was, for once, I was going to be successful, that I deserved to feel good about myself. And so that was my ultimate motivator. And so we just started. And then 6 months later, I lost 70 pounds. I got on that stage, I competed, and I won.
Ooh, girl, this is like a Tim Ferriss moment. Okay, let's talk about, okay. So you had a 6-month goal. You basically said like, life will never be the same.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So walk me through that, because I think a lot of times we get so stuck in the mindset part. So what was that 6 months where you were just like, I'm going to do, like, crush it? Like, what was going on in your mindset? Like, what was going on? What was like the shift, the overall shift when it came to this 6-month countdown?
Well, I'll just say it was brutal. I mean, I know in the movies you see these transformative montages where it's like they're in the gym and they're like doing the thing and the new clothes, and it kind of looks fun and glamorous.
Right.
That's not real. That's not real at all. It was a mental fight every single day. I had to choose it every single day. It wasn't like, oh, great, I have a coach. And like, here's the thing about being a coach or a trainer is your clients sometimes think that you're a genie. It's like they think that they can like rub up against you and you're going to like sprinkle some fairy dust and your problems are going to go away. Right. What your coach is a guide. They put together a plan for you and they help push you through that, but you have to take action on it every single day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel great.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. Like, it's so funny too, because as you're saying this, I'm sick. I am in grad school and I'm doing all this stuff. And like, it's not, I mean, regardless if it's weight, education, business, I think people forget how difficult it is to make the shift in your brain. Like, it, I love Instagram sometimes to read every once in a while those transformation like from here to here, but it's such a process. It's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I mean
is.
it's
Yeah,
brutal, and you still have to do all of the other things in your life. Like
right.
you don't stop living your life. It wasn't like I stopped working and I stopped being a wife and I stopped being a daughter and all of the other roles that I play in my life. I had to figure out how to have that and how to make this a priority. Because when you have something big that you want to do,
Mm,
it has to be your priority. It had to come before other things in my life. So some things just had to stop. That was a choice that I had to make every single day.
right.
It wasn't like this switch flipped in my head and all of the other things were easier somehow, or not. I didn't have to contend with them anymore. I still had to contend with those things. But the shift really happens over time.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're going through any kind of transformation, whether it be like, this is the year I'm going to transform my finances. Once you take that first step, now you are out of your comfort zone. You are in
Mm-hmm.
uncharted territory and you don't know what the hell you're doing. You're like walking through the wilderness at night. So that's
Yeah.
what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to choose every single day to take that next step. So that shift happens slowly over time. People think, oh, this is going to be the year that I transform my health. This is going to be the year that I transform my finances. This is going to be the year that whatever. And they're like, they make that decision and then they think that it gets easier somehow, that I don't know, like that there's going to be a clear path and there's not.
No, I mean, I mean, that's the thing too, because I think one of the things, especially when you're a woman, you you'll have the same thing like I could do it, she could do it, I could do it, and sometimes I don't think we think about the how long we had that dream and then how long it took to get to that place, because I'm thinking about personally, like I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that we're talking, because I actually have thought about getting my personal training, because I've always felt like, this is super random, but I've always felt like finances and fitness always has like a mental battle with folks. Just
Mhm.
like the fact that some people, stress out about um, eating like a donut or like a piece of cake, which I ate like 4 pieces of cake this week. Um, like stress so much about eating that, and then never actually make the steps to jump out of it or like get out of it. I think a lot of times we just forget that it's a process and all this stuff takes time.
Right. It's a process. It all takes time. It's all very challenging. But I'll say that I also really strongly believe that the way that you treat your body is a template for how you feel about yourself.
Hmm.
And your relationship with money is also a really great revealer about how you feel about yourself and how you feel about the world around you.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
and it's crazy too, because there's at the core of it, we complicate things when it comes to like our health, our wealth, our relationships, our career. But at the end of the day, it does start with you, which is so transformative. But the crazy thing is like you said, you didn't even have to spend all that crazy money, which I really want us to talk about next. But like, you didn't spend all this money to transform your life. It was more like, I'm going to work with this person. I'm going to get my mindset shift. It's going to take a while. It's going to be a beast. How can I get out of it? And I think a lot of us, it's so funny because I'm working on a credit like building credit. And I'm like talking a lot about culturally, like a lot of women of color, and just a lot of folks don't really understand the like your FICO score and your all different types of stuff with your money and how that actually builds over time, and how you have to like switch that mindset. Like, oh no, I'm just a person that gets a 800 credit score. That's just what I do.
Mhm.
Like, like, no, this is what, it's the same with your BMI. It's your same with your body like, it's the same. Like, I'm not saying like, go ahead and get one of those health workouts or like, do one of those fad diets, but it is exactly the same. It really does start with you.
It really does. And when you're going to go through any kind of transformation, it's going to blow up your life. You're going to learn things about yourself that don't make you feel great.
Can you tell me one example? Because let's get vulnerable. Because I'm like, when you're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's saying all the stuff I've been feeling right now.
Like, I cried. Like, I'm not much of a crier, but going through like that 6 months of my life, I cried more in that 6 months than I have cried in all of my years on this planet, because it's a revealer. Like, all of a sudden you become very vulnerable and you start to see the things in your life that aren't as they should be. And man, I lost some friends, and that was really painful. And it changed my relationship with my husband. Like, we went through a really hard time. It changed my relationship with myself. It changed my relationship with food. Everything changed. It made me reveal, like, one of the hardest things I had to understand was my relationship with money was really toxic. And I had no awareness of that because, first of all, culturally in my family, we didn't really talk about money. Like, in Black and brown communities, we don't talk about wealth building for the most part. We don't talk about FICO scores. I didn't know what that was. Back then, I didn't know what it was.
All I knew growing up was don't go to the checking and cash. That's all I knew.
Yes, no rent center places and no check cashing places, right?
Yeah, that's all I knew. It was like those two pieces. Very true. And the same with dieting. Like, my family used to just be like, don't gain weight. Yeah. That's all they said. Like, just stay skinny or whatever.
Culturally, the conversation around health is about weight. It's like, you either need to lose weight. It's really about weight loss. Don't gain weight. Or like family diets, like, that's a thing, right? Like, where everybody in the family is on the diet at the same time, or like, let's do a competition. Like, everybody put in $20 and whoever loses the most weight at the end wins the pot of money. That was the entire context of how I thought about my body, really was in relationship to like how much weight I needed to lose, and do I look like whatever the mainstream beauty archetype is. And I didn't. I'm never going to look like whatever is the mainstream.
Right.
I'm not petite. My body type, like, if I had to pick a celebrity, who does my body type, who am I most similar to? It's Serena Williams.
Right.
We're about the same height. We're about the same measurements. It's that like thicker, muscular body frame. That's what my body looks like. So I was never going to fit that, right? But any type of European standard of beauty is never going to happen to me. I'm not blonde.
Right.
I don't have long, thin legs. I have thick thighs, and I have a big butt that no matter what I do, it's never going to get smaller.
I mean, 100%. And I think the crazy thing is that image of beauty is not even realistic for a lot of folks. Like, even, it's crazy. Even blonde. I was walking, because I live in Philly. Everybody likes their cheesesteaks. You know what I'm saying? I always saw this blonde girl, and I was like, I turned around and I thought she was a person of color, and she was she was white, and I was like, dang, like, that's not like that image of beauty. Like, yes, you want to be fit, and sometimes you can be lean, but I think there was this actor that made a joke, and they're like, how do you stay so fit? And he's like, I sleep 9 hours a day. I have a personal trainer. I have a chef. I have a this. That's why I look the way I do. Like, you can't, it is a full-time job. And I think it's particularly when it comes to families and things like that, a lot of people think, oh, being quote unquote fit means that you're naturally skinny or you're naturally, we got to do this weight loss thing.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of that actually creates shame.
It
Like
does.
I feel like the aftermath is pure shame, and that's not healthy at all.
Right. It does. And for the
Right.
most part, your weight isn't even the most accurate measure of your health. It's not. It took me, I had to learn all this through, going through my own transformation and then getting training on my own to become a certified coach. I didn't have that context, but you asked me about money. So I wanted to make sure and I answered that question. So when I decided to get a coach and like I was going to compete and I was going to get this weight off and I was going to finally feel good about my body, I did have to make a financial investment in that. And it wasn't cheap. So I had to figure out how I was going to make that work in my life, right? Like I still had a mortgage to pay and insurance and the expense, you still have expenses and you still want to be able to like go see a movie or whatever. So other things in my life had to go.
Okay, let's talk about it. What was some shedding? Let's break that down. What was like the top 3 things that you had to let go?
Cable went away. And people like freaked out. Like now it's normal. Like, people in my family were like, what do you mean? Like it's normal now to stream services, right? Like, more and more people are moving away from satellite and cable. And so we were a little bit of early adopters because I was doing this and like, I don't remember how much it was, but it was over $100 a month that we were paying for like all of the packages, right? Like the movie package and the whatever and the whatever and the whatever. And I want to say it was around $150 for the whole thing. And I was like, I can't pay that. Like I need to do this for me. And I have to cut expenses somewhere. And so, my husband was pretty good about it. What we did is we upgraded our Wi-Fi at home, and then we got rid of all of the other stuff. And so we just didn't watch TV if we couldn't stream it. And so we had, there was a different streaming service. Like you couldn't even really stream, like this was like 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, streaming Netflix was even kind of hard.
Right. Yeah. I remember that.
You had to actually like go to Netflix to the website and like log in and then like download the movie to watch it. And it was kind of a pain. So we just kind of stopped watching TV. And people around me freaked out. They were like, well, how do you watch football? And I was like, well, there's a bar down the street and they always have the game. Or you have cable and we come to your house. Like, that was part of the sacrifice that I needed to make. And at the time it felt like sacrifice. And now with hindsight, I have a completely different way of thinking about sacrifice. To me, sacrifice isn't about giving up things. It's about letting things go that you don't actually need in your life.
Right.
So shopping cut way back, like way, way back. Through this process, I came to understand that my relationship with my body and food was very much wrapped up in my relationship with money. They were all very tightly intertwined. And I realized I used to do this thing where to celebrate something or to prove my worth to the outside world, because mind you, I couldn't prove my worth as a woman by putting on a bikini and strutting around, right? I was obese, like that didn't work. So one way that I proved my worth was by being flashy with money. I had a good job. I had earned it, right? I went to college and to graduate school. I checked the boxes that I was supposed to check. And so I spent lavishly, like going to the most expensive restaurants in town anytime I needed a boost or I wanted to prove who I was or I wanted to celebrate something. I used money and food to celebrate my worth and to prove my worth to the world. So we would go to the most expensive restaurants in town and drop $150, $200, $300 on one meal.
Right.
Right. Yep. And that was, and then I could tell everybody, oh yeah, I went to Ocean Prime last night. great.
Right. Yeah. No.
So
That's
good.
that is. I don't know if you've heard. Refinery 29 has those money diaries, and it's like basically your money diary, and you kind of explain like what you do on a day to day, and it's so interesting because like a lot of chicks that are from like New York or Houston or something like that, they'll have the salary and then you'll see, oh yeah, that's right, everybody, you spend money. And I think you hit a nail on that. I think also when we're stressed, we spend way more money. Like I was looking at my bank account um, yesterday because what am I trying to do? Oh yeah, I'm trying to change my finances again. It's so funny because I'm like training to be a fiduciary, but now I'm like, okay, if you want to have this like net worth of this, I have to like literally change my mindset and everything. But I actually won a year supply of coffee.
Oh, nice.
Right? But why am I going to the coffee shop?
Oh, yeah. Why?
Like what? I'm like looking at. I literally won a year's supply of coffee. It's like literally the universe was like, I was like, I gotta save some money. I spent so much money on my coffee, or and I don't even buy regular. Or I don't even buy like fruit. This is like fruit. This is like
Yeah.
It's like
And
the
so you
bougie.
said I need to save some money, but I spend a lot of money on coffee, and the universe was like, problem solved, girl.
Right. So I there was like I got this coffee, free coffee, because I always spend like $2.25. I'm a little bit on the frugal side when it comes to my coffee, like $2.25 per each black coffee, and then once a week I treat myself to a draft latte, and I go to the coffee shop only like twice a week, 2 or 3 times a week. Like that's kind of like the average. So got all this coffee, got free coffee. And you know what happened? I was so stressed out this week. I went to the coffee shop 4 times. I haven't done that in, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you the last time I've done that. And when I looked at it, I was like, dang, I've been going to La Colombe a lot, like way more than I have. Like looking at those habits are very, very important, especially when we're like trying to live our best life and then also trying to get a goal. Like your thing with the you have to go and show off your money is different. Mine is very like I think your personality types or your like horoscope, whatever, actually has like your archetype can dictate how your money habits are. So I spend a lot more money when things have to get done. Like it's very like Napoleonic, like it's got to get done. If it doesn't get done, I'm going to spend all this money. And that's when I lose my flow and I'm like overspending. So I love that. You talked about, I just read your blog post recently on eating healthy on a budget. Could you talk to me about that? Or talk to the audience about it? Because I'm a big
Yeah.
fan. And like, what are your tips and tricks for budgeting? And then also you mentioned something about organic, like,
Mm-hmm.
falling on a budget with organic food too. So just overall talk about eating healthy on a budget.
Yeah, I'd say the number one complaint I hear from people about, changing their eating habits is that it's really expensive to eat healthy. And
Mm-hmm.
I think so on one level that's true. I'm not going to try to deny it, right? If you want to have all organic everything, you're going to be spending some money.
Right. Whole food becomes whole paycheck
Yes.
sometimes.
I mean, there's a reason why that's the thing,
right?
Right. And you can eat healthy on a budget. Like I don't go crazy at Whole Foods, right? I mean, there was a time, it's a little bit difficult not to, because you have to realize Whole Foods is a business and they have set up a business in a way that is designed to get you to spend, like Target.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Target and you go there for one thing and you want to, and you like have a cart full at the end of it. Well, Whole Foods is designed in the very same way. It's
Mm-hmm.
psychological. And so you have to be diligent if budget is a concern for you, and it's going to be a concern for pretty much everybody, right? And so there's a few things that you can do to just be mindful and bring that food budget down a little bit. One thing is, first of all, when it comes to organics, you don't need to buy everything organic. You don't. Right. What I recommend to people is look up the Dirty Dozen list. these are the foods that are most impacted by pesticides, and that are, they just become seeped in it. And even with a gentle washing, there's going to be residue on there. And so those foods, try to get those organic if they're available to you.
Okay.
The other thing I tell people, like the other major tip is, invest money in the things that you are going to eat the most of. So like, I love mangoes. I do. But it's a seasonal item and they're really high in sugar. And so I'm only really gonna eat 1 or 2 mangoes sporadically over the summer.
Right.
Depending on where I am with my fitness goals. Like if I'm in prep, there will be no mangoes at all, unacceptable. But if like now I'm not prepping for anything in particular, I'll have a mango every now and then, right? So I'm only gonna buy that once, twice, maybe 3 times over the course of a year. So I'll spring a little extra to get the organic one.
Hey, wasn't that a great podcast? Just make sure that you hit up Tangia Renee at That's What She Did podcast, or you can also find her on Tangia Renee on Instagram, and I'll make sure I put that in the show notes as well.
Well, anyways, I thank you so much for taking your time out, and make sure you follow her, because I loved all your blog posts. They were very simple and very easy to read, and I would recommend the one where you talked about going to the hospital with your heart, because I shed a little tear. So that
one caught me off guard.
It was, well, yeah, you can't, that's crazy, but I'm glad you're feeling better. So
thank you. Yeah, I'm completely healthy. The heart issue is a non-issue at this point. And it's just one of those things, you got to take care of your body, and you need to listen to it. And when something comes up, just take care of your body. Don't put it off. And
that's why I'm going to take a nap right after this.
Okay.